Here's a segment from a recent Gun Talk radio episode. You can listen to all the Gun Talk radio podcasts however you tune in, or check out guntalk.com for more. And we're back. Tom Gresham here. 866-TALK-GUN will get you in, or Tom Talk Gun, easier to remember, at least for me. If there's something on your mind, you've got a question about guns, self-defense with guns, should you carry a gun? Should you have a firearm for protection? If so, what kind? Because that's where a lot of people start is, what gun should I get? And I always say, well, what kind of training have you had? Well, I haven't had any training, but I want, okay, I got it. I understand. But the two go hand in hand. And there really is no answer to what gun should I get. It's like saying, what kind of vehicle should I buy? It depends on what your mission is, what you're going to do with it, what your experience level is, where are you going to go? In the case of guns, how are you going to carry? Are you going to carry? Is this just for home? Is it for carrying? Is it for a vehicle? Yeah, a lot of questions. That kind of makes it fun, though, because we could explore that. One of the guys I like knocking that around with joins us right now. Wayne Black is a security expert, been all over the world doing, well, protection of VIPs. Let's put it that way. Hey, Wayne.
How are you, Tom?
I am well. How'd I do? You've been all over the world doing protection of some really important VIPs, cabinet level people and others. Fair enough?
That's fair enough. I protected Secretary of Defense Rumsfeld for about 11 years until his death last June. So we went everywhere in Central Asia and around the world.
And now of course, you offer training for church security teams. You also offer firearms training with handguns and with carbines. And we were talking about this week and talking about the role of carbines, AR-15s, if you will, I'm guessing, in the world of self-defense. And you're down there in Florida where you just had, Hurricane Ian, and you got looters, you got this and that. It kind of all blends together in this mix master, concoction that we can talk about. You want to start on that?
I think you're right. What you said at the intro, Tom, was spot on. It's about training. What do they want to use a carbine for? What do they want to use any firearm for? And do they have the proper training? A carbine is that kind of a round is great for home defense and self-defense, but it's not good for accidentally shooting yourself for sure. So training is really, really important.
A carbine, you're talking about AR-15s. It's funny, we were talking earlier this week, and the subject of slings came up. And it's like, I think it's an afterthought for most people if they're not really into it. But when you're seriously into this, people who really do this all the time, slings are an important thing, aren't they?
They're very important. There are a bunch of really great slings on the market, and if you use the sling properly, the adjustable ones, that can add stability. So let's say you're standing and you can crank that sling down properly. It adds a lot of stability and keeps the sight picture, keeps the red dot or the iron sights from jumping around when you breathe.
So, and there are some very well-known operator types who have come up with their own slings, and you were mentioning Kyle Lamb as kind of the guru of the carbine.
Yeah, I really like that VTAC sling. He's got a bunch of them. There's some other ones out there, but Kyle's is great. A lot of military and law enforcement units use that. It's just so well proven, and it's quick to spin around the back and tighten in case you have to go hands on, but it's also good to shoot with.
And then, of course, Larry Vickers is another one who's got his line of slings, similar, at least to some extent, of being able to adjust them to. As someone explained it to me, look, you can pull the carbine up hard against your chest with these adjustable slings. Now your hands are available. You don't have to hold on to it. The sling actually for an AR is what a holster is to a handgun.
No, absolutely. Yeah, you can tell if somebody's serious about a carbine for self-defense or other by the if they have the sling or not. They can't, you just can't carry that around in your hand.
Right. And the other part is you're not buying a $20 piece of webbing to slap on there. It is actually an important part of gear. It's like having your optic or suppressor or whatever it is, buy the good thing and put it on there. And then we go right back to the same place all the time. Go take a class and learn how to use it, because learning how to use a sling properly actually does require training.
Yep, absolutely. In the eastern United States and probably all over, but there's a gun sight guy named Randy Cain, Cain, who is really a great carbine operator and does a lot of training on that. And of course, Kyle Lamb does that too in his schools. And there's tons of schools. But if you're going to carry a gun, you know what they say: if you're going to carry a gun, carry a gun. If you're going to carry a carbine, get a sling.
What is the role of carbine in self-defense? I mean, I'm thinking in terms of things like aftermath of Hurricane Ian. You're going back into your neighborhood, and it can be kind of a Wild West situation.
Yeah, I think carbines. I mean, if you think of the technical part of it, there's less penetration with a carbine than there is with, let's say, a 9mm pistol. So, you know, everyone that has any weapon, any firearm, is legally, morally, and ethically responsible for the final resting place of every round they fire. That being said, you're going to, depending on the round that you put in, the 62 grain, salt point, tap round, or whatever it is in a carbine, you're going to have less penetration than if you have a pistol. And a lot of people just buy the cheap target ammo. That's going to go through every wall in your house with a 9mm or greater.
Yes, yeah, full FMJs, and you know that there are people whose heads have just exploded because they're saying, well, a rifle has to have a lot more penetration. These are, of course, people who've never tested it.
Right. Yeah, it does not. And look, it's all about training. And the other thing is for home defense. Let's say you have a carbine. How are you going to carry it? So we recommend patrol ready, meaning it's cocked, but there's not a round in the chamber. You crank one in, the safety is already on. Then after you crank one in with your support hand, then you're just ready to shoot. The same way law enforcement does with patrol rifles. They don't carry a round in the chamber in the rifle like they do in the pistol.
Huh, interesting. Okay, I was not aware of that. That's what law enforcement does. Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, so let's switch back to another topic, and this kind of, because you are a student of world events, you get plugged in with intelligence information, not asking where it comes from. I kind of got an idea, but we're still in a war against terrorists, are we not?
We sure are, but let's talk about a couple numbers.
Okay.
60, that's the number of countries where people have been caught and got away coming across our southern border. Syria, Lebanon, Nigeria, Benin, all those countries, those people, Tom, are not coming here to pick strawberries.
Okay.
And think about, there's millions of them. So since 9/11, to give you another figure, there's been 484 people charged here in the United States, 9 outside the U.S., 40 deceased in the act of jihadist terrorism. And anybody can look that up, and it's called in the New America Report on terrorism in today. But then I'll give you another number, 100,000. That's the number of unvetted guys from Afghanistan. We don't know who they are. We just loaded them on a bunch of planes, and we brought them here and turned them loose.
Oh, so, you mean when we bailed out of Afghanistan?
Yes, sir. So what are they doing? So I think we just should brace ourselves for another, what I call CCA, a complex coordinated attack. The first ISIS attack in the U.S., remember, was 2014 against Pamela Geller in Garland, Texas. And luckily, they were going to come shoot up an event where Pamela was speaking.
Right.
He's the one that did the Prophet Muhammad art painting and all that stuff.
Well, and these guys with AKs ran up against law enforcement guys who knew how to use pistols, if I remember right.
That's exactly what happened. They got there too late. The GPS malfunctioned. They got there too late. They shot a security guard on the way in, and then a patrol officer who was smoking a cigarette outside after the event was over engaged him and shot both of them as they clumsily got out of the car. But the point of the story is that was back in 2014, and they keep trying. I mean, we had the Medina attack here in South Florida. Luckily, FBI had an undercover person, but the bad guys only have to be right once. we have to be right all the time, and that's next to impossible.
Hold on here a second, Wayne. When we come back, I want to talk a little bit about what does that mean for the average person who says, yeah, I've got a gun for self-defense, but I'm thinking about muggings and everything else. And now we're talking about terrorist attacks. Is there actually a role for self-defense firearms and for carrying a gun against a terrorist attack? We're talking with Wayne Black from Black Associates. You can take a look at it. We'll give you that information when we come back. All right, back with you. We're talking with Wayne Black from Wayne Black Associates. I can finally get that right. Wayne Black and Associates at wayneblack.com. Quick question for you. Michelle's asking, are you specific about the caliber of carbine, only .223, or are we talking pistol caliber carbines? Are they as good?
No, I don't think so. The pistol caliber carbines are the same as pistols. Think about that. The 9mm is going to penetrate more than a 5.56 or .223. So I think if you have a pistol and you want a carbine, you should get a carbine caliber.
There you go. Okay, so we're talking about terrorists, and nobody's talking about that right now out in public. And you say we've got hundreds of thousands of people from 60 different countries who have entered the U.S. A lot of those countries don't like us. A lot of them are hotbeds of terrorists. And now they're here. And I know people are thinking, yeah, but if I'm just carrying a pistol, what's that going to do? Well, we just heard the story about the police officer, one officer with a handgun that shot 2 terrorists with AKs and stopped them. Realistically speaking, in your experience, what can one person who, let's say, trained up a bit, can do?
Well, it's better than nothing, depending on what the training is. But really, what I think, Tom, about pistols is, and I've carried one every day for the past 40 years. A pistol is a piece of metal that you use to fight your way to a rifle. So, if you really need it, I mean, you would always rather have a carbine because you can reach out. So think about this: let's say you get a carbine, you got an indoor range, you put an optic on that thing, you can make a 50-yard and a 200-yard zero at 10 yards. So if you zero that at 10 yards, you put it on the dot, it's going to be 1.9 inches or 2 inches low at 10 yards when it hits. That means that it's going to be zeroed at 50 and again at 200. So, and between those times, there's only anywhere from 4 to 6 inches of deviation anyway. So it's just such an incredible protection. And people say, who needs a carbine? Who needs a carbine? Well, I think we should ask those people in Ukraine who needs a carbine.
No kidding. They're begging for them right now.
Yeah. But I think... Yeah, I think it's great. I was on an airplane recently with some people coming back out of Texas, a couple ranchers sat next to me, and the stories are horrific. They're breaking into their barns, they're cutting off their water supply, which results in the cattle being killed, and these are all gotaways. So I think the numbers are more like in the millions. But even if there's a couple hundred jihadists, I mean, we got major problems coming up.
Well, and they don't have to be jihadists. They can be just plain old drug cartels who are willing to kill you at the blink of an eye.
Oh yeah, and locally for sure. But I think we're at risk because of our failures at the border and elsewhere. We've never really been weaker in my time here on Earth than we are now. I think we're at risk of another 9/11 style.
And you don't walk around carrying a carbine. You keep one in your vehicle. You're carrying your pistol. So how do you secure it in your vehicle?
Well, I have a Jeep, and I have a locked case. Jeep has that back seat that pops up. I have a locked case in there. And of course, because the humidity and temperature changes, we've always got to keep it oiled up and make sure it's working. I don't carry it in there when I'm parking at the airport, obviously, or I leave my car someplace. But
right.
And there's one at the house, and that's something for people to consider with kids. How do you secure it at the house? And those are all issues. Right.
No, exactly. The other thing is, a lot of people say, well, I've been hunting all my life. I know how to shoot a rifle. And you go, yeah, I know, but you don't know how to shoot an AR for defensive use. You don't know about optical offset. You don't know, have you ever actually tried to reload without fumbling magazines? And that's one of the beauties, of course, of the ARs having 20 or 30 round magazines, or even more than that. But you also need to know how to reload them. And again, a class is the place to go for that.
No, absolutely. You need to know how to clean it, and you need to know how to clear a malfunction. They're a lot more sensitive to dust and dirt. The AR style, a lot more sensitive to dust and dirt than a pistol might be.
Yep, they really are. And I guess the obvious thing, you're delivering more energy on target, which is much more likely to stop the fight more quickly.
Oh, absolutely, and more expansive energy. So if anybody has ever gone hunting, that's a great place to try different ammo. We go hog hunting here in Florida with pistols, and so we're using Hornady ammo and critical duty, critical defense in a pistol, and that's really good because think about it. A hog is really an angry 200-pound person in a leather jacket.
Okay, I like that.
So you want to see what that is, and then if you compare what happens with a 9mm or a 45 pistol round to a 5.56 round, that's a Hornady, red tip, blue tip, whatever you want to use, like the SWAT teams use, it's just devastating.
Yeah, no comparison at all. You're hitting them much harder. And if it were socially acceptable, we might walk around with ARs, but we carry our pistols, as you say, to fight your way back to the rifle.
Yep. That goes back to that concealed carry versus open carry theme.
Do you have a preference on optic for ARs?
No, I think anything that works. The new Wholesomes are good. The aim points are great.
You like the red dots? You like red dots over scopes, for instance? Yeah,
because it's going to be within, if you need it, it's going to be within 50 or 100 yards anyway. So you just adjust the red dot. Leupold makes an expensive scope that's an active reticle, 6-to-1. But I like just red dots. I'm using aim points, but I've seen Wholesomes recently. They're awesome.
Yep. Well, all right. Good deal. Wayne, thank you so much. If folks want to know about what you're doing, or maybe even come sign up, take a class, or have a church security team come down, is the website the best way, thewayneblack.com?
That is, yeah. We were out in Texas recently, and I got to tell you that some private schools that have proprietary forces with former law enforcement officers are going to carbines for private schools. So that's that's the kind of preparation they're doing. And I think it's important. They qualify at least 4 times a year for insurance reasons, whereas most police departments, unfortunately, only force their regular patrol people to qualify once a year. So it's tragic.
Well, that's when you know that your school security is serious, when they're carrying ARs, carbines, and they're training and qualifying 4 times a year. And you know what? Why wouldn't you want your kid in that school? Well, I mean, a lot of the schools are using security as marketing, and I think it's right.
Oh, I want to send my kid to a private school. I want to know that I can come pick them up, and things like Uvalde and those other schools. I mean, that really drives it home. Yeah. That's a whole other topic. We'll talk about that sometime over a cold beverage. So that's another deal altogether. Wayne, thank you again for what you do. I appreciate you sharing your experience and your expertise here. WayneBlack.com will take care of that. We'll see you maybe at Gunsight again next time. Look forward to it. Thank you, sir. All right, you take care.